it's a traumatic experience for me, my family, and it sucks that the country that we live in now, sometimes you get profiled for the color of your skin, and it's a tough situation for me. Do I think every police officer is bad? No, I don't believe that. Do I believe there's some people out there that judge people on the color of their skin? I do believe that, and I'm just focused on trying to push forward and keep continuously championing the quest for justice for people, keep pushing equality for oppressed people.
And that's Michael Bennett. There's some big news out in Seahawks land, and Michael Bennett just released a statement today. Real quick, we are the Seahawks Fan Table Podcast. With me is Ross. We have a special guest, Tony, who's joining us because Zeb's not feeling well. So, Zeb, take care, feel better, man. But, yeah, we have sports and politics colliding in a really big way. We talked about this on our last podcast in regards to Michael Bennett and whether or not this was a distraction. And here we are with the mother of all potential distractions. It's kind of crazy, guys. With me, Ross, Tony, thank you guys for joining us. How are you guys doing today?
Pretty awesome.
Fantastic.
So this is kind of an unusual thing, especially under the circumstances of the day. So we're actually going to start with topic number one. We will get into more Seahawks stuff because the Green Bay Packers are going to be our opponent this Sunday, and the NFL season starting tomorrow. Technically, for Ross, it's already Thursday, so he's closer to football than we are. I don't know if that works that way, but we'll just say because Thursday is when the season kicks off.
I don't get football till Friday, though, but that's okay. I still live in the future. Don't worry, I won't spoil it for you.
All right. We'll wait for Ross to tell us our fantasy tips at the end of the podcast. But we're going to go to topic number one. So topic number one, Michael Bennett releases a statement about his arrest in Las Vegas. How did the Seahawks react to this latest event? It's not really totally Seahawks related, but we've seen Michael Bennett with his protest. We've seen teammates come in support. We've seen other athletes come out in support. And now he is the face of, what looks to be a very, very bad incident with a very prominent black African-American athlete and a very, very bad interaction with the police. Ross, man, what's your take on this?
It's a little bit difficult for me to give a take. You hear his statement and it sounds really, really bad. And then you see the video and it doesn't really corroborate or not corroborate. You're just seeing only the middle part. Excuse me. And I struggled with how I felt for a while, but then I realized that really more than anything, I think it's a matter of perception. And that's why it's so important. That's why all the past incidents that he refers to in his statement matter. Like, you can say that, for example, that maybe when all the details come out, that at the end of the day, maybe the police are going to be more justified than it sounds at first, or maybe they're not. The thing is, it almost doesn't matter. What matters is, in the light of everything else that's happened, in the light of all these 50-50 incidents, if you're liberal, you don't think they're 50-50. If you're conservative, you think it's people making excuses. But at the end of the day, it's all about perception. These people aren't lying. It's how they see it. And if that's how he feels it happened, and if that's how people around him are going to feel, then to them, that is reality. You don't get to live in an objective reality. You live in the reality that you're in. And if it's gotten to the point where we just perceive a complete lack of justice, if you're inclined to see that, then you're inclined to feel it. If all those other, for example, even if you felt he was being, illegally singled out or unfairly singled out, for example, he feared for his life. If all those other incidents hadn't have happened, would he have feared for his life? Would it have felt as unjust? And so the reality of it just points to again, perception is so much more important than what really happens. And if that's how he perceived, if he really perceived his life was in danger, if he thought it could all be over because he's seen this happen over and over and over again, that is real. That's real to him. That's real to our country. That's how now people out there see things happening. And then when, you say, hey, the cops have this pretty good explanation, but you also have the cops also saying, oh, and by the way, once again, when something bad happens, the cop's camera's off. His body camera is off. And so again, maybe that's again, it's all perception. Maybe he had a legitimate reason for not having it on. Maybe he legitimately forgot to turn it on. Sorry, for legitimate reason to have it off. Maybe he just forgot to turn it on. Whatever. But again, it's if people see it and people perceive it that way, there's just like this whole. I mean, I myself, well, as soon as I read it this morning, oh, the cop didn't have his body cam on. What a surprise! It's all about perception, and that's what both sides have to realize. If the police really think they're not being that bad, and they need to work on the perception, why is the perception out there? And on the other side, if you have that perception and the other people insist, it's really not quite a fair one. That they have to find a way maybe to find out where that perception is coming from and how they can work on it, and how if better, more fair shakes should be given. I don't know. It's very difficult.
Tony, thank you for being our guest. You are coming in for a very, very big topic. What do you think about this? We'll talk about the reactions that we think the Seahawks will do, what they've shown already. But Tony, when you heard about this information, you're a Seahawks fan. How did you feel about this? Because maybe give us a little insight about how you view athletes like Michael Bennett taking a stand against the things they feel are an injustice and this latest incident. Tell us, please share.
Sure. I found myself in the uncomfortable position of having to understand the reaction by the Seahawks, I think, has been very supportive, and I think that it shows the good character of the organization as a whole, caring about its staff. I think they've handled the to the greater extent, not just this specific incident, but the larger, sitting down of the national anthem, however you view it on the political basis. I think as an organization, they've handled it well, walking the line between the fan perception and on both sides of the political aisle, and being supportive of their players. And we see the players who have the one opinion. We don't know what the rest of the locker room is like for the people who haven't spoken up, and you can't read into it either way. I did find it interesting that Goodell had a much different. It felt to me, at least, on the quick take that I read of his for the league, that his reaction to this was better than expected and better than usually. I think that the NFL as a head organization generally works with these types of situations.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. When I saw Goodell's statement about Michael Bennett specific to this incident, I can't recall any other commissioner of any other major sports league speaking out about social injustice in what I would imagine is it's a pretty quick turnaround. I was going to work early in the morning and I was getting pieces, and then someone read me the statement of what happened, and for the commissioner of the league to make a statement in less than 24 hours, I think is impressive. Say what you will about Roger Goodell, but I think that speaks a lot to who he wants to be perceived as, and maybe potentially who he actually is.
I was pretty stunned by his reaction, to be honest. I mean, that's not really how you picture Goodell. And also, like you said, even the turn of the speed. I mean, usually he takes 6 months to investigate whether a ball had enough air in it. And he didn't really, 24 hours later, he's already talking about how he feels about it. I was like, whoa, are you not going to wait to meet every single policeman in Las Vegas? I was pretty impressed for the stand he took it, for the speed he took it. I agree.
Well, I think one thing you have to also factor in is he's got a franchise moving to this city. This is not going to be a one-off incident where he's got an NFL player on their off day going to a very large-scale event where we know other Seahawks were at as well, not with Michael Bennett, but other Seahawks were in Las Vegas for the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight. He's going to have a franchise located in that city, come 2020. So it's not that far off in the grand scheme of things. And I kind of want to think that this is him speaking kind of to the city and saying like, hey, look, we're coming to your town soon. This is not a regular occurrence in other major cities. You don't hear about athletes in their hometown of professional sports being pictured on the ground with what appears to be a gun to their head in what all instances show that not saying that he was or wasn't antagonizing police or deserved to be arrested, but from the video that I saw, it looks like he's complying. He's addressing them politely. He's asking appropriate questions. The sheriff of this of Las Vegas has spoken out. It's quite an interesting, and it's a really crazy collision of sports and politics.
In my mind, it's a slightly different skew than the Black Lives Matter protests today. This is about a specific incident that happened to a specific player, and I do appreciate Michael Bennett's statements on this to a great. He's been, if it was going to happen to any Seahawk, having it happen to Michael Bennett is probably the best example that you could throw out. He's a guy who never has off incidents. He's a guy who, when he says something, there's very little ambiguity as to what he's getting around. He's forthright. He's outspoken. He has something to say, and he's able to put it forward in a way that isn't overly antagonistic to people. He doesn't make people super defensive. He doesn't get in your face about it, but he makes solid points that you certainly need to pay attention to.
That's why I sort of kind of disagree, and I worry that Michael Bennett kind of undercuts himself a bit. I agree with you. Like, he's very, very articulate. He has an actual point. Remember, like last year, Jeremy Lane did the whole kneeling for the anthem thing too, and then they asked him why, and he really couldn't give an answer. Like that's not Bennett, right? Bennett knows exactly what he's doing, and he has a clear purpose and a statement, and that's why it's so much better. But I also worry that, he's in this past, especially, he's been a bit of a clown. On the football field, he's been sometimes not unclassy, but he's done some questionable things. I mean, after plays over, he'll do some pushing. After the games over, he'll do some pushing. Even the Super Bowl they lost to the New England Patriots, it was down to that last kind of play.
Come on.
No.
No, you're trying to tell me that the Patriots and their squeaky clean image were not antagonizing the Seahawks in any way. And this is not to excuse them, but
to my first point, it's all about perception. Do you think the general public sees Michael Bennett as a completely gravitas type person, or do you think some of them see him as a bit of a clown, a bit of an antagonizer himself, a bit of a drama queen? You don't think there's any of that perception out there? You really honestly don't think so?
No, I'm not saying that there's not. But I'm on the Seahawks fan table. I am in defense of Michael Bennett. Our podcast is about the Seahawks. So I agree with you, though, with what you're saying. Perception is reality, and depending on the perception, it's going to be a different reality. And I think that's what makes this really unique, because Michael Bennett is the most articulate person to address this. Colin Kaepernick, I think he's gotten better, but he's kind of slow to getting his message out. I mean, he's been more...
Kaepernick doesn't articulate what he's doing, and I think that's why he gets hyped.
Yeah. And
Kaepernick, I think you need to emphasize the slow portion there. He isn't able to say why he's doing the things that he's doing, and there's definitely a different perception. One of the things that I want to chime in about with Michael Bennett is, for football fans, a lot of them are going to know Michael Bennett, and they're going to think of him as the guy on the bike after the Super Bowl, and the
which
guy
is
who
awesome, by the way,
interviewers. But there are casual fans out there, or the casual, the vast majority of the viewing public doesn't really know who Michael Bennett is. I would guess, and to see a man standing up there, sober, with in his demeanor, not prone to excess. He was very calm and rational, and put forward his position. He made a case for it, and he wasn't full of invective against the police, and he wasn't jumping to conclusions. So I think the average person is going to see that man standing up there in that way more than they're going to think of him as the guy who might have, hit some, got into an altercation at the end of a Super Bowl where everybody's feelings were a bit high. They're going to think of him standing behind that podium today, I think, more for the average person.
Yeah, and Ross, to your credit, they actually, when I was listening to it, I found out about it on 710 ESPN in Seattle, and they brought up the fact that he is kind of a clown, that he had that incident after the Super Bowl. And I think when you mention those things, it's part of the story, but it doesn't add to the story, because there's not a lot of character assassination that you can do with a guy like Michael Bennett. For the most part,
let me put it this way: if you go to like a site that lets you comment on news articles, go to what's it called, Pro Football Talk.
Pro Football Talk is pretty crazy. I've read some of the reports.
Watch the initial, like read the article that they put, and then see the comments afterwards.
I'm on Twitter. I know all the comments that have been said about Michael Bennett, rightly or wrongly.
It's just really discouraging.
It is discouraging, but what I want to talk about now is, let's talk about how the Seahawks react. Tony, you already alluded to it, that the Seahawks have come out. Roger Goodell of the NFL has come out. What do we think is going to happen? Now, some people are going to say that this is a distraction. I'm not in that camp. But what do you see the Seahawks as a team, as a staff? What are they going to do? Is this a rally point for them? Ross, what are your thoughts about that?
I almost to the same, not to the same degree I was surprised by Goodell. I was surprised at Pete Carroll coming out. I don't know why I was surprised. He always has his players' backs, but I'm going to throw this out as a possible hypothesis. I would say at this point the Seahawks are undistractable, if that's a word.
Let's say it's a word.
They referee's choice. It is a word.
Just say yes.
I'm just saying that I don't think they are distracted, but I think they live on the edge. I think they like to. I think that the Seahawks kind of thrive in a little bit of an antagonistic environment. There's something almost every year, and it doesn't ever seem to harm them, and it seems to sometimes bring things out. Arguably, maybe some of the harm and stuff does. We'll never actually no, not never. We'll know 30 years later when somebody writes a book, but most of the drama that happens around them. All it does is, in the end, it seems to bring them together. That's what they're finally going to have the meeting about, or whatever. And in this case, I kind of talked about last week. I thought that Bennett's protest would actually bring the team together. They had all these other things over the offseason. Did Richard Sherman want to get traded? Does everybody hate Russell Wilson, or does the defense resent the offense? Does the defense resent Bevel? You know what? Let's not talk about that stuff anymore. Let's talk about our teammate who just had this happen to him. And whether, again, you're pro-police or anti-police or normal police or just want to stay objective about it, that's your teammate, man. Your teammate just had that happen to him, and he thinks it's real. He's visibly shaken up. And let's rally around Michael Bennett. And let's say, then let's be a little bit even more understanding about why he's protesting, during the anthem. And I almost guarantee on Sunday there's going to be more than just Justin Britt standing with him now.
Yeah, for real. Tony, what about you? What do you think you're going to see in Green Bay?
For the support from the team for Michael, this event happened. I don't know, when was the fight? Over a week ago now.
Yep.
So we've already seen some of the actions, like new information for them. Obviously the starters didn't play at the last preseason game, but I think Ross has it right. I think you're going to see more support for him, but at the same time, this is game one. This is Green Bay. They're going to be there for business, and they're not going to focus, I think, on this particular incident overly much. I think they're going to let it play out, but their business was with Aaron and the rest of the crew in Green Bay, and they're going to put their game faces on and put this behind them.
Yeah, I think you're both kind of right. I think we're going to see the Seahawks find another chip on their shoulder to kind of rally against. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they're going to do, because this team, to some degree, still amazes me in the way that they are able to overcome distraction, because I look at the things in my life and just as a regular person, like, what distracts me? Like, oh, there's a new video game. Oh, there's a new Star Wars toy. Oh, my kid fell down. There's all these things that I immediately lose all focus and change course. These are professional athletes, and we've seen them go through trial and tribulation and still come out ahead. Yeah, we don't see them succeed in every single facet that we want them to, but few rarely do. So I'm excited because I want to know what's going to happen. I can't wait to see the build up to it. We've already seen the Seahawks as an organization put support out. Pete Carroll's put support out. Many of the players, Justin Britt, one of Michael Bennett's most visible allies, has immediately given support in to what Michael Bennett experienced, and that's I think to me always an amazing thing, because standing up for someone else's indiscretions and injustices is a big thing, and people have different views about what you should and should not do, but I think it's a thing that's going to bring the Seahawks together, and especially against this game against Green Bay, we're going to hit that reset button, and we are actually going to talk about the Green Bay Packers. So a lot of things to talk about. Obviously, we have the home opener the season opener coming up. There's a lot of changes that happen with the 53-man roster, a lot of surprises. I don't want to get too crazy into it, and actually I want to get straight into topic number 2, which is, are the Seahawks able to go into Lambeau and win? What makes this year different? So, Tony, we're going to start this off with you. And for those of you that don't know, the Seahawks have not won in Lambeau since 1999, Mike Holmgren's initial year in Seattle. Tony, what do you think, man?
I am a homer, so take that with a grain of salt. But I think that there's every reason to believe that the Seahawks will pull this upset off. Obviously, Green Bay is terrific at home. They've had our number for years. Ross and I even traveled to go watch a playoff game there, Favre's last homestand. But this team, I don't know, maybe I can't put my finger on it exactly, but during the preseason and seeing the team that they've assembled and how well they're clicking with everybody healthy finally, most people healthy, I think there's every reason to believe that we'll give the Packers all that they can handle.
Ross, what about you? What's your expectations? You've been to Lambeau. You guys have been there in the cold. This is a September game. What makes it so different?
In January. It was awesome. I think this is awesome. I think what's going to be the key to the game is 2 new people on the team. Sheldon Richardson, I think, kind of puts it over the top for us, because you can't just – last time they tried to take care of business over there, they rushed 4. And you can't really do that because they have that guy who's kind of good, Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron.
He's kind of good. And I don't really like him, but he's really good. And you can't rush 4 and just let him pick you apart all day. But you can't blitz him because But now if you send what are they calling it now? What's the new nickname for the D-line?
The Cheetah?
Death Row.
That's the Michael Bennett name, but yes, I think that's awesome.
It's catching on. It's you heard it second here. You send Death Row at him, and maybe you can get away with just rushing 4 and an occasional Bobby Wagner blitz that's disguised well. And with Griffin out there and Lane back fully healthy, I think this year we can slow down their offense just enough, and our offense is caught up enough that I think we've got a really good chance. Shorten the game by throwing 3 or 4 different running backs that we have that are good at them, and then go into the fourth quarter and steal it.
I think that there's every chance we can make the Packers one-dimensional. Unfortunately, that dimension is Rodgers. But if you force him, if you take away the ground game, it makes us much more potent in every aspect of our game, and we have too many tools on offense for them to make us one-dimensional. And with the amount of running backs that we have, it will help us control the clock. And that's, I think, really a key for us is clock management and minimizing the amount of time that Aaron Rodgers has the ball and them running the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our defense is probably on a scale of 1 to 10, 2 points above their defense. Their offense is maybe a half a point to 1 point above our offense. Special teams seem to be about a bit of a wash. So I think as long as we don't have any flubs, and it's a cliche, but it's probably going to be turnovers. If they get an extra turnover somehow, if there's a ball bounce off a receiver's hands and they catch it, or if we get the opposite, that could be the game. It's going to be close, but I think we can win this. I think we match up well. I think we have a slight advantage. They have a 3-point, the 3-point favorites, but they're home, so really that means Vegas says it's even.
Yeah, it's a push. I think there are a lot of things that are going to be in Seattle's favor. One, it's a September game, and that is going to make a huge difference in the world. Yeah, it's a tough game on the road, but this is probably going to be our toughest game for the first month and a half. And if Seattle wins, that's huge, not only in standings, but just going into the year. So the time of when they get to play is huge. This is the most healthy Seattle will ever be in the year, and that's gravy. That's awesome. The other thing is Sheldon Richardson. We're going to talk about him a little bit later, but if he can do what we want him to do from the interior, that changes the whole dimension. We talked about what the Seahawks need to do. We talked about our opinions. And one thing that I've always wanted is interior pass rusher, interior push. And this is what he can do. And the Packers are down Brian Bulaga. They're down one of their tackles. That's another big advantage to Seattle. And this defense it's not super young, but it's hungry. It's healthy. And guys like Earl Thomas want to show that they're back. I mean, that guy was going balls to the wall in every preseason game opportunity he got. I imagine Pete Carroll had to steal his helmet away just so he wouldn't show up on special teams out of the blue. So I'm excited, and I think this is what will make it different. What's funny is as bad as Seattle has played in Lambeau, Green Bay hasn't played particularly well in Seattle either. So maybe this is the first move where we take one from them by winning in Lambeau. I like the odds. I like the fact that they're a 3-point dog in this match, even from a betting standpoint, even though I don't bet. But that means that, a lot of people look at this as a very close game, and I would give the edge to Seattle due to that defense.
Yeah, I think so too. I really don't know how at this point, if it works out as it does on paper, I really don't know how you stop the Seattle defense. You throw at Griffin all day long. Eventually Earl Thomas is going to come over and steal one of those from you.
Yeah, and Griffin, he's a rookie, but he's not looked terrible. My only thing is he just needs to turn his head a little quicker.
Do you remember that game where Rodgers just completely decided not to throw Richard Sherman and they just kind of limited him and felt embarrassed about it later?
That's a lot of games, which is kind of funny. Right. But yeah, I mean,
he was there was the one particular game he just would not look over.
There was not one throw his way that entire game, not one.
Yeah,
it was just in the interviews afterwards they were talking about it, and you could tell it was the offensive coordinator's idea because he was clearly embarrassed by the fact that he hadn't even tried to challenge Richard Sherman, and they've never done that again since. So.
And that
was pretty awesome.
To Richard Sherman's credit, he's not really getting burned. Obviously the one game last year in Lambeau wasn't so great, but for the most part, if you look at their last 5 games, Richard Sherman's come out on top quite a few times.
Well, and keep in mind that he had that secret injury last year, right? Where he was everybody looking at it from the outside without knowing that you thought the stuff, but then you find out that he was dealing with knee injury all year, and he didn't appear on the injury report for totally legitimate reasons because he never missed a practice or a snap or anything. But dealing with that kind of injury will definitely have an impact on your success. And now he's healthy. And one of the things that a playoff team needs to do to show that they're capable of winning the Super Bowl is win these difficult games. And if you don't think that the Seahawks have that in mind, you're absolutely wrong. It might be week 1, but this has definite playoff implications, and it's crazy to say that for week 1. But this is a team that we see year in and year out in NFC Championship games.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. All right, well let's
championship preview.
Right. Well, let's take this wave of happiness and glee and talk about topic number 3, the Homer Corner. Have you booked your flight and Airbnb to Minnesota for Super Bowl 52? Ross, you're a big planner. You always talk about raffling our tickets and going, and unfortunately, we have never been lucky to win Super Bowl tickets, but one year we will. Is this the year?
Man, it probably is, because it's the one I would kind of think, do I really, really, really want to go to it? Like Minnesota in January, or rather February, right? Like,
been there.
Wow. Okay. I mean, like, you kind of get the feeling this is the year, like, the Super Bowl tickets won't be selling for $2,000. They're like $1,500. I have not, but in fact, I think we were talking about this the other day during one of the fantasy football drafts I was in. I didn't know where it was this year. I felt kind of embarrassed. But
I had to look it up before I came up with the show sheet today, so you're not alone.
Yeah. I'm going to get Minnesota, really? I guess they want to show off the new stadium, right? So that begs the question, how come Seattle didn't get to show off their new stadium when that was built?
We don't have enough hotel rooms.
Well, don't they, like, bring cruise ships in and stuff for that?
There's a lot of ways that they could technically get around it. I think one of the issues is, outside of it being in Seattle, is the fact that our stadium, while it could get to the minimum threshold, it requires a lot of work, and they don't want to deal with it. Maybe that's why they.
And they also don't like the rain in Seattle in February.
I know, but it's raining.
Open air stadium.
It's rained in the Miami. It's rained in their Miami.
Like,
stadiums.
how hard would it be to sort of like make a temporary cover for that?
No, football should be played
Impossible.
in the elements.
Anyway, I have not booked, and to be honest, I guess I in September it's easy to say you wouldn't go, but of course if they made it, of course I'd be mad at myself for not having booked it something already. But man, it would be just our luck, man, to finally win the lottery and have to go to Minnesota for the Super Bowl. But I'll take a Super Bowl anyway, I guess.
Hey,
I'll definitely go to them.
You know what? This is what the plan is. We just go to one of the neighboring cities and drive to Minnesota for the Super Bowl. That's all we need to do.
Are there neighboring cities in Minnesota?
Yes, St. Paul's across the way. That's like literally across the
I
water.
think I'd be the same. That's too close. That's like the Twin Cities. Right?
No, there are tons of cities that are close by in the Midwest. I think that's still considered the Midwest, but yeah.
When you get to Minnesota, I don't think like the Midwest is like the cool part, right? Like Minnesota's like I don't know. Like when I think of Minnesota, all I can think of is like wolves and forest.
You get around it. You drive up to Vancouver, take a commuter flight over to Quebec, and then drive in from Canada. Cheaper flight.
I'd probably be into that. That'd probably be actually more fun.
Tony, what about you? I apologize. We don't know each other super well, but I know you've traveled with Ross to Green Bay. Would this be something that you and Ross probably would start planning? Like, what if you had your chance right now in September? What would you plan to do for this opportunity?
Oh, geez, that's a tough question.
Roll the dice. What are you going to do?
I mean, if I knew now that the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl, yeah, I'd figure a way to plan on it and save for it and pinch my penny so I can make it to the game. It would be pretty epic to see it, and from all accounts, that stadium is pretty beautiful on the inside, despite its flaws from what I've heard with like the way that the players get in and out of the stadium and everything. But it would be pretty epic.
How do the players get out of the stadium? It's like parachute them in.
They have to walk through the crowd.
Oh, just like Dallas.
They didn't figure out the issues with that until they had to cart somebody who was injured off the field.
Oh, so it's just like Dallas. They actually have to enter through an area through the crowd. That's crazy.
Wow, that's kind of weird in the world of like super high security these days. Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that, but I'm still going.
Gets the fans close to the players, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Which is
I hope it's not like the Dallas Stadium where there's actually like seats like behind like concrete pillars and things like that.
Yeah.
That was scandalous.
Yeah.
When they got to host the Super Bowl.
This is what I know I'm going to do. If the Seahawks win week one against Green Bay, I will be looking online at tickets and nearby hotels and nearby flights and airports and just kind of getting a ballpark, just kind of putting some feelers out there. And as it gets closer, if this defense looks as good as it can be, we'll see if there's any refundable hotel bookings or Airbnbs that we can look at.
Yeah,
Wouldn't hurt, right?
No, yeah, you got it. You got to plan ahead. If they start out something like 4-1, then you got to start seriously looking at it.
I mean, if they're 4-1, they don't need to do that much to secure home field, and the way that this team plays at home, it's almost automatic for a Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'll be over there, and I'll be over there next week. But I also come over at Halloween for our second set of games I'm going to this year. If at Halloween it's looking awesome, then we just sit down and we do it all together, and maybe we start planning a trip. Maybe we make an official website or podcast trip.
Right.
There you go.
All right. So
Go fund me.
Exactly. Exactly. We'll start a GoFundMe and a Patreon.
I can't even. I'm disqualified from that because when that one quote unquote super fan did that, I was one of the officially outraged people. The Seahawks.
Yeah, but we would not make any pretenses about this. This would just be like, hey, fund us so we can go have fun at your expense.
Yeah, dude, but I was so outraged. I mean, God, that got pissed me off.
And look at him now. Look at him now. All right, let's get on to topic number 4. So Seahawks, with this new transition from one cut from 90-man roster to 53, we saw this big wave of trades.
Yeah.
And we saw huge trades from Seattle. They actually made 3 trades before the cut. Mostly we're talking about Sheldon Richardson, but is this the biggest acquisition in the Pete Carroll, John Schneider era with defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson? Tony, I'm going to hit this with you. We talked about this a little bit before we went live, but what are your thoughts? What are your questions about this?
My first thought was, now I don't have the encyclopedic knowledge that you guys do, but the one that almost immediately came to mind for me was Marshawn Lynch, and I'd have to say that right now he's potentially a bigger acquisition in this era than Sheldon, just because beast mode was basically the name of our offense for years, and it was built on his back, and we built our entire offense around him. Sheldon Richardson creates a defensive line that is more fearsome probably than anybody else's in the National Football League, and probably for the last decade. I don't know. You guys have a better feel for that than me, but we're probably not going to say that his single acquisition has as much individual game impact. As a whole, it may have that opportunity, but we called our offense beast mode basically.
No, I think that's super fair. Ross, what about you? What do you think about this latest acquisition?
He's probably nailed it. You look at the other acquisitions, and they either not either. It's not either, except for Marshawn Lynch. They've all sort of not quite lived up to expectations or were miserable failures. Like when they first signed Percy Harvin, I wasn't super enthused, to be honest. And to be fair, that's not 20/20 hindsight. I really wasn't. But most of the world was like, oh, that's not even fair. How can they even afford that? They must be cheating on the salary cap, blah, blah, blah. And then when they got Jimmy Graham, I had people texting me going, that's really not fair. That's going to be so awesome. And like Jimmy Graham's helped a lot, especially last year. He seemed to really get integrated when he started getting healthy. And Percy Harvin was an unmitigated disaster, except for one awesome kick return in the Super Bowl when the game was already out. So this is it's probably going to end up being a number 2, the number 2 after Marshawn Lynch, right?
Yeah.
But who knows? The guy does have a bit of a history. You never know. This could be another Percy Harvin for all we know. Fingers crossed it's not. Let's hope it calls on the Marshawn Lynch. I hope in 5 years we're debating whether Sheldon Richardson or Marshawn Lynch was the better signing.
I think that's true, and I think, Tony, you kind of hit it on the nail. We're kind of comparing what the Seahawks could be versus what the Seahawks already were. I don't think you could really.
Marshawn Lynch brought us to 2 Super Bowls in the sense. I'm not single-handed on.
No, and I don't think you can argue how important he was to those 2 Super Bowls. His fingerprints are littered throughout the Seahawks Super Bowl runs, and also even before they became that Super Bowl team with the Beastquake. So
Yeah.
you have 5 solid years of Marshawn Lynch being a key contributor, a model Seahawk. You know, he had small, minor off-field incidences that ultimately didn't count to a whole lot. But it's hard to argue against how big an acquisition Marshawn Lynch was, and especially he's the guy that wasn't even there at breaking camp. He was the guy that was traded like week 4 or 5 in the middle of a season, which is so rare. What I will say about Sheldon Richardson is that we have made some minor trades for defensive players in the past. I think the most prominent defensive player that we've actually traded for was probably Chris Clemens, and he was a big part of the Seahawks in those first 4 years. What I think Sheldon Richardson brings, outside of the fact that this is what I've always wanted, an interior penetrating defensive tackle, I think what this is addressing, saying like, hey, we've got this top tier defense, let's crank it to 11. Let's just add something else that no one would be able to really comprehend, because Ross, you pointed this out on the forum, there's 21 Pro Bowls between 8 players on the Seahawks defense. And that doesn't include a guy like Frank Clark, who had 10 sacks last year. Of those 21 Pro Bowls, those are set up by 5 guys. So that's kind of crazy to think about. You know, as much as you want to say the Pro Bowl is a publicity or popularity contest, it's hard to get into Pro Bowl. It's hard to get into your first Pro Bowl. It
doesn't mean nothing.
Exactly. It means something. It's not the end of everything, but it means something, and it's a really great way to kind of judge, like, hey, how good is this person in relation to the rest of the league?
Can I ask you a related question, Sam?
Yes, of course.
Is Sheldon Richardson being looked at as a one-year rental, or was he auditioning for a long-term contract?
Well, what I love...
He's got it right now, like, just in case people are listening and don't know, he's got 1 year left on his contract. It's a good contract, but it's up in the air.
Well, I wrote about this on Twitter, so you can catch us on Twitter.
About that. Does that mean you tweeted or something?
I tweeted about it. Seahawks podcast. Check us out. But what I love about this is there's so much flexibility. When they acquired Percy Harvin, they kind of locked themselves to it. They traded an equal player and then gave Percy Harvin a big contract, so they were kind of like cementing themselves. With Jimmy Graham, he already had a contract, so it wasn't a question of how long he was going to be here. But with Sheldon Richardson, they've got 3 options. One option is to franchise tag him, sign him to an extension, or to let him walk and get a 2019 comp pick. So they gave up a 2nd round and they swapped 7th round picks for him and Jermaine Kearse. But they potentially can get a 3rd round pick back in 2019. Yeah, that's far away. But that just means that they have choices. They're not that hamstrung with what they have to do. And I think that's what's exciting. I think they also are so smart, and Ross, you alluded to this. People question, like, how do the Seahawks have money to pay for this guy? They cleared some cap space by restructuring Doug Baldwin's deal, and they have, like, almost their entire defense, except for a few guys on rookie contracts. Theoretically, that seems impossible, you know, and Sheldon Richardson's making, he's making okay money.
I think he's making $6 million.
I think it's like 6 to 8, somewhere around there. But if they sign him to an extension, it's fully possible that they can do it, because they've got a lot of money falling off the books. They have Justin Britt, who they signed to extension, Cam Chancellor that they signed to extension. That opens up money for 2018. That's huge.
Well, we also cleared Kearse's money off the table.
Chris's money was like $2 million. I mean,
yeah, but without that, I don't think they could have done it.
No, most definitely. They had to move Kearse, and Pete Carroll alluded to the fact that the Jets really wanted him. Number 1 wide receiver on the Jets. If you haven't drafted your fantasy league already, definitely grab him. But I look at this as a win-win situation for the Seahawks. They have ultimate control. If he ends up busting, it's not going to be the focal point of our defense all of a sudden crumbling.
Right.
If he's awesome...
The thing is, he's also a replacement for Mr. ATV accident.
No, that's the big thing that Pete Carroll alluded to, that this is a huge reason why they made the move. And
right, so but next year that guy comes back, and all of a sudden they're like, which one do we want? Which one do we want?
And also, I think they really liked Nasir Jones.
But then trade him.
Yeah, but also Nazir Jones has played really well. Oh, that's the other thing. They could franchise tag him and then trade him. They don't have to get a first round back for him. They could trade him for less than that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of options.
And that's what I love about this deal. Once they announced that they didn't sign into an extension, I was 120% on board. I was like 99% on board when they said they traded for him because I was like watching Twitter like a hawk. But without the extension, an additional 21% on board.
The interesting thing is also when players play in Seattle, especially you think coming from the Jets, they usually want to stay. So I wonder if he has a good year, I wonder if he'll want to stay anyway and maybe take a slight discount. There's a lot of good things. Like a lot about this trade just shows like the class and how well Seahawks handle things. For example, you have Doug Baldwin. Like Doug Baldwin was willing to restructure because they told him what it was going to be for. I mean, like, not many teams can be up that front, and some teams are so bad with the personnel, they wouldn't have had a wide receiver around who either would have been able to do that or would have been somebody you could restructure that for, and you have to kind of trust that they're not going to, from that point on, no longer put in the effort.
Because there's no way a Chargers player would have trusted the front office to do that.
Right.
Oh, for sure. There's a handful of teams that are like that.
Right, and the opposite side of it is you also have to trust Doug Baldwin, because now that you've turned it all into a bonus and he gets the money up front, now his yearly salary is quite low and he doesn't have as much motivation to do as well. But yeah, when you have a player like that, you've had him around and you've treated him with respect, he's still, Doug Baldwin's not going to just start phoning it in next year or this year. He's going to be all out forever because the Seahawks have those high motor guys and they have an organization culture that makes everybody turn it up. So there's so much about the deal that just shows off how well the Seahawks are doing right now, and why I don't understand why John Schneider is never up for any awards for CEOs and general managers.
Executive of the year, yeah, him and Pete Carroll.
Yeah, why? I mean, how can he not be?
I think it's one of those things that like Coach of the Year is about, hey, who had a shitty team and then surprised us, and then when it comes to like Executive of the Year, who had the number one pick and didn't fall on their ass.
Yeah, exactly, and it just makes me mad. And I also think that Pete Carroll and John Schneider sort of kind of cancel each other out in a way. It's like if you have two wide receivers from the same Super Bowl team and they're both really good, and they kind of cancel each other out and try to get into the Hall of Fame because you can't choose both, and you also is one really good because of the other. I think like when people look at Pete Carroll, they're like, oh, that's because he has John Schneider behind him. They look at John Schneider like, well, Pete Carroll probably makes him look good. They're both awesome, and neither of them have won.
They're exceedingly complementary with each other. Like I think it takes both of them to make it work. I mean, Schneider hopefully will be around. Pete Carroll is in his 70s. I hope he coaches forever, but that's not going to be the case. But Schneider for Schneider's next teammate as a coach. I just pray that they're as complimentary, philosophically as this relationship has been.
So you don't think Pete Carroll is getting like secret treatments in Europe in the off season as well to make sure he lives forever?
He's getting the Regeno-kind.
That's a Seahawk thing, man.
The Regeno-kind.
He's got his own version of that, man. They're just like he just does a full body transplant of all his blood, and he's just in it.
Yeah, just like the Silicon Valley with the Blood Boy.
Yeah.
Well, every year in preseason, every year in training camp, he throws like a ball as many yards as his age. I don't know if he can still do that. Did he do it this year, Sammy?
I know that's like his tradition. I'm sure he does.
I saw him do up to 66. I think he's 69 now.
Yeah, so I mean, he's definitely the oldest, but it's one of those things. He doesn't act like the oldest, and I think that's one of the reasons why he's so enduring to
Although,
fans.
I gotta, in complete honesty, this year on the sidelines, looking at him in the preseason, he looked a little frailer. He looks a little smaller, doesn't he?
I would attribute a lot of that because I remember we were talking about it at the training camp, and it was before the news of Malik McDowell, so I would maybe attribute that to kind of him actually caring about his players and worrying about the way that they are, not just how they are as players, but actually as people.
Seriously, Pete Carroll's like losing weight late at night, worrying about his players. Come on.
I would say yes. It's more likely than not.
I don't believe you, but I want to believe you, and I think that's enough.
Hey, that's enough. That's enough.
Just like you would have ever heard any football podcast.
Win forever, baby.
I like this image like Pete Carroll like kind of like macrameing something on his recliner.
No, that's
TV.
old man. He's on the sidelines jumping up and down. That won't change.
Whatever, but at the same time, like his wife's bringing him food, and he's just I'm too worried about Malik. I can't eat tonight, dear.
Maybe. I'm not going to put it past him.
Yeah, I can't eat. I can't get Malik on line one again.
All right,
that'd be awesome if it was true.
Let's talk about one of the new things. So we have multiple fantasy leagues. Tony, Ross, and Zeb, even though Zeb's not here, we're in multiple fantasy leagues. We have a podcast league with the 3-step drop. Everyone's 0-0. The first week we have Lior and Coleman going up, so we'll give you guys an update after that and how the rest of the podcasters are doing. But want to talk really quickly about kind of some of your biggest mistakes and steals. Any secrets that you guys want to share? You have to make any sacrifices to the fantasy gods for your bye week? I know Ross has like week 9. He doesn't have anybody. And
that's a strategy. It's not. I concede instead of being one player down like every week. I just concede 1 week. I concede week 9. I forget who plays me week 9. Is that Jeremy? Jeremy gets a win, I take a loss, and every other week I'm at full strength. It's a strategy. We'll
see if it plays out. We'll keep you up to date. Tony, you have any secrets you want to share since most of us are done drafting?
For your drafts in general, pick your strategy and stick with it. Obviously, if you see somebody falling that was on your list, take it. There's no such thing as a reach if it's a player you believe in.
That's faith. I like that.
Yeah.
What I will always say is it's much harder to replace a running back than it is a wide receiver. So whenever you have a chance, stock up on running backs because guys like Ross and everyone else will try and trade for your backup running backs because they want them. They're coveted.
Yeah.
So let's get into some predictions. So final score between Seattle and Green Bay. Ross, what's your final score?
Make Tony go first.
Tony, what's your final score?
Seattle 27, Green Bay 24.
That was mine, damn it.
Price is right, him, Ross. Give one more point.
I could go 28-24.
All right, 28-24?
I don't think you can only slow them down. So I really think it's going to be something. I do feel Green Bay is going to be at 20. It might be 31-24. I feel it could be 31-24. It could be 31-27.
Oh, you guys don't have faith in the defense. I'm going to go 28-10.
I have
defense.
Green Bay.
Defense.
10, I'll take the over.
Yeah,
I'll take a side bet with the over.
I think he's just trying to not prices right. He prices right me all last season.
You prices righted me. Don't even begin with that. We're gonna have to review the tape on that. So because we're talking about score,
I'm a big Bob Barker fan.
Because of the score, not just about who wins, but at the end of the day, let's say Green Bay wins, let's say Seattle wins. Doesn't really matter. Who's gonna get the best of each other? And because there are other facets that won't necessarily determine the outcome.
But who has bragging rights?
Aaron or the Seahawks defense? Who do you like in this matchup?
The Seahawks defense. I think they're going to make a play here or there at the end that Aaron Rodgers is going to be mad at himself for. But really, it wasn't about him. It was about how awesome Earl Thomas is, or how Griffin just got tired of being picked on all day.
Tony?
I think it's going to go back to what I said before. I think that our defense is going to make their offense one-dimensional, and that's what the story is going to be. Win or lose, I think that the display that our defense is going to put on will be the story of the game.
Can I ask a real quick question that's associated that made me think of it? Like, Tony, you say we're going to make their offense one-dimensional. Are they not already sort of voluntarily one-dimensional? Like, when your running back is actually a wide receiver pretending to be a running back, aren't you already conceding that? Does anybody really buy Ty Montgomery is going to be a between the tackles, pound out the yardage guy? Does anybody believe that? Except for the guys in my fantasy league, you always pick him.
He has running back eligibility in fantasy leagues, so I guess
I know. I mean, he is a running back. They're come on.
In the game, last season they tried running him between the tackles. They had a run game. It was part of their offense. I think that they're going to give up the pretense of even trying to run.
It wasn't a run game. It was like we have to pretend this is here so you can't completely tee off on Aaron Rodgers, isn't it?
Yeah, but they've done that before. They've had like 2.1 yards per carry in some of their games, so it's not like this is anything.
They don't care. They don't care.
But
they don't care.
I'm saying Seattle defense. If I'm saying they're only scoring 10 points, Seattle defense wins handily.
10 points, man. Really, 10?
Yes, 10 points.
Range more than once. I mean, it's the NFL, man. Like it's the Seahawks defense is awesome, but
death row, Ross. Death row.
Death row.
I'll stick with my guess, but I want to believe in yours.
Nice. I'm getting converters. Really quickly, you don't have to do the entire divisions, but who's winning the AFC? Who's winning the NFC in their divisions? Off the top of your head, just shoot from the hip. Who do you like?
Patriots, Pittsburgh. The South, I don't know, man. That's a turkey shit. I have no idea in the South. In the West, it's really hard. It's up for grabs. I don't believe in the Raiders. Sorry, Jeremy. Don't really believe Kansas City. Really? Maybe Kansas City.
All right, Tony. What about you in the AFC?
Well, I think you have to take the Patriots, especially when you look at the rest of their division.
They've already been crowned, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been crowned Super Bowl champions already.
If you go to NFL.com, it says Patriots 6-0 to start the season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take an upset. I think in the AFC West, our old hometown. I think I'm flipping coins, but I think that the Chiefs might shock the world here. I'm not a huge believer in the Broncos this year. I can't even really say why, but I just have a.
Because they don't have a quarterback.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. I mean, their backup situation is god awful. Their primary situation isn't great either. And then
they re-signed Brock Osweiler.
Yeah,
for a vet deal.
Sure did.
Genius move.
I'm gonna go with the Steelers. I'm gonna say the Titans in a squeaker with the Texans, but they'll pull it out maybe. And then part of that is strength of schedule, I think, but both of them have real good strength of schedules.
Tony, I'm with you. I think Titans in the South, obviously New England in the East, and West. I'm going to go with the Raiders because they've got the best quarterback. Sorry, Bryce, your Broncos suck. And
she's not better than Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, but Phillip Rivers and that entire team is garbage. They have 20 fans in their stadium. They're not going to play well all year.
So they can fit the 12 apostles in the stadium.
Exactly. And in the North, I hate to do it, but I'd probably say Pittsburgh is probably going to be the winner. What about your thoughts in the NFC, guys?
Tony?
I'll go with, this is going to be tough, but I'm going to say the Giants over the Cowboys. I don't think the other two, I don't think the Eagles or the Redskins have the team to get there. But I think the Giants kind of have the Cowboys number, and I think that they'll do it again. I think the Seahawks in the West, of course.
Of course.
I think I don't think the Packers have any real challengers in the NFC North. The Vikings have a great defense, but their offense leaves a lot to be desired, and right now the NFL favors offense. And then at least over the 16-game regular season. And then in the South, I think the Falcons repeat.
What about you, Ross?
Green Bay. Yeah, that's that. I'm going to go with the Eagles, I think. In the South, I guess I go up to, I believe in what that is doing. I really think the defense is going to make a step this year. I think the Falcons are going to be quite good. And in the West, I don't know. That Seattle team seems pretty good.
They seem okay. So in the NFC, Seattle, I'm going to go with the Giants. I like what Tony said. I'm not committed to anyone because I don't like the division. In the In the North, I actually like the Vikings. I like Minnesota. I like their defense. I like their running game. Sam Bradford does just enough, and I think the Packers aren't as good this year, even with Rodgers. In the South, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Bucks because no one in the NFC South has ever won back-to-back divisions with a winning record. They've only had it once or twice where one team has actually won back-to-back divisions, but it's never been with a winning record. So Atlanta, I'm sorry, you're out. Goes on to Tampa
Somebody's
Bay.
doing his research.
Yep, doing my research. All right, let's talk about who's going to meet in the Super Bowl. Seattle versus who?
Who's going first, Ross?
Me. Huh? The logic to me says Patriots versus Seattle because they've almost got a head start. They get to play the Jets twice, the Bills twice, the Dolphins minus Tannehill was on the hope. So they're starting out 6-0. They're starting out with almost home field advantage already sewed up. It feels like. So it feels like that's good, but I feel like maybe Pittsburgh upsets them in the playoffs. So I think I'm going to go with Seattle-Pittsburgh, actually.
All right. A rematch. Super Bowl 40.
Well, anything would be a rematch, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Tony, what about you?
Ross convinced me with his argument. I'm going to go Seahawks. Repeat.
I'm going to say we face Marshawn Lynch and his Raiders in the Super Bowl, and Seattle has to shut them down. But Seahawks, Raiders, Super Bowl.
I could be incredibly happy with any of those.
Oh, you said the Raiders were going to lose. That's my bad.
Even if they don't win the division, they're a playoff team. So, what about who's?
Do you think Marshawn Lynch is going to have a good year still? Do you still think that?
Yes.
No, okay.
I do.
You did.
I have drafted him in a few leagues, and I believe that he's going to do regardless of my
fandom. You drafted him kind of high. You drafted him like third round, right?
Yeah, third round.
Wow.
All right. Who's going to suck the most in the 2017 year? Who's going to get that number one draft pick?
Tony, you take that?
Oh yeah, I've been preaching this in all my fantasy draft. It's going to be the Jets, Jets.
They're fighting so hard to suck.
I mean, they absolutely just gave up. They just said, "Here, take our team." I mean, it.
Well, ironically, they demanded Jermaine Kearse. Like they really just were demanded him. Like, no, dude, no, nobody else. It's got to be Jermaine.
Well, they did lose their best receiver beforehand, so it's. I mean, we were talking about this in the draft. Like, they have to have this random dude be their number one, and no one wants.
Yeah, it was
him.
going to be Robbie Anderson. I told everybody to take Robbie Anderson. They all took him, and they got Jermaine Kearse. Like, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
that was my advice. Sorry.
All right, Ross. Who you got?
Do you agree? You going? You think the Jets as well?
I think you have to take the Jets as the worst team in the NFL.
I'm gonna shock you. I think it's the Bills. I think the Bills on paper are better.
Their quarterback is so much better, though.
Well, kind of. But they don't even believe. Here's the problem. He's better, but their team clearly doesn't believe. Today, their coach told him, just be one of 11 players. You can't tell your quarterback to just pretend he's just one of the 11 guys. The guy's got the ball.
If you're the Bills, you can.
You don't even tell Russell Wilson on a team like Seattle. You don't tell Russell Wilson just be one of the guys. Come on. Like, Buffalo has also almost thrown it in just as much. They kept Tyron Taylor because they sort of had to. They were looking around, and they couldn't get anybody else. And then they decided to throw it in because they got rid of both the receivers. Both the receivers are now playing for the Rams. They've got nothing. And then they got rid of they know they have a running back who often is injured because he's old and he's got a lot of mileage on him. So they got rid of his backup. There is no backup. Their backup is now, what's his name? The guy, like the bowling ball guy. Played for the Panthers. Played for Tolbert.
That guy's still around? Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah, right. That's their backup now. The Bills are throwing it in just as bad.
They're in the conversation. Everyone in the AFC East is in the conversation except for the Patriots. That's for sure.
I think the Jets. I mean, the last comment on this question is it's not really an awesome one to make fun of other people. It's bad, but I think the Jets actually are going to kind of pull together, like sort of like Major League. Like everybody's like down on them, and like those players stuff. They have to play for pride. They have to play for their jobs for next year. They're going to try really hard. And Luke McCown, at least. I mean, he sucks, and he's like older than the hills, but he's been around. He's not going to let them he's not going to let them fail too bad. He's going to be like, and then Jermaine is going to teach him how to win.
So Jermaine Kearse is gonna put the team on its back, right?
No. I said no.
He's going to put him on his back for 3 wins, booked.
Hold on. Look at the question. It's a low threshold. He's going to do enough to pull them out of being like having the top pick. Okay, I'm not saying they're going 16-0 because of Jermaine. I'm saying him and Luke are going to get together, and they're going to go like 3 wins.
They're going to go 2-14 and squeak out the tiebreaker.
You're factoring in. Like they got to play the Patriots twice, so there's your 2 losses.
Okay, the Bills and the Jets, they get to play each other too. Right? I mean, like they play each other twice. If one of them comes on top of that twice, that's 2 wins.
Okay, call them 50-50. You got 1 win there. I don't even know who the rest of who they're playing. The rest of their schedule.
They get to play the Dolphins, who are better on paper. But if Cutler throws 3 picks, that's another win.
But somebody's got to catch the picks.
All right, this is way too much effort for. This is way too much effort for the worst team in the NFL.
They still get paid. They still get paid to play. They're still professionals.
You know what? We're going to carry this conversation on in the forum. Check out forum.hawkscast.com. Ross has a topic about this very thing with Tony. Check it out. We do discuss that. If you want to talk about the Michael Bennett situation, events, check out forum.hawkscast.com. We're talking about a lot of things, not just sports, also politics, also nerdy stuff like X-Wing miniatures games, for those interested. Gentlemen, any shout-outs?
Shout out to Zeb. Hope his tooth feels better.
Agreed.
And,
shout out to Zeb.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to Tony for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Tony, for joining us.
Yeah, my shout out was going to be to you guys for inviting me. I appreciate it very much. It was a lot of fun.
Ross, any more shout-outs?
Shout out to my cat who stopped bothering me just as we went live, so I didn't have to disturb you guys with me fighting with him.
Nice. Well done, Blitz.
Yes. Yeah.
So
how sad is it that people know the name of my cat?
Well, I know the name of your cat, but we are the Seahawks Fan Table Podcast with special guest Tony. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check out our website. It's forum.hawkscast.com or hawkscast.com. Check us out on Twitter. We are Seahawks Podcast. I am Sam. With me is Tony and Ross. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.